Welcome to Top Advisor Marketing, where you will learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your practice. Brought to you by Top Advisor Podcasting, a done-for-you podcasting solution built just for trusted advisors. And now, your co-hosts of Top Advisor Marketing, Kirk Lowe and Matt Halloran.
Hello and welcome to another Top Advisor Marketing podcast. One of the fun things that we get to do at Top Advisor is connect with new people. As you all know, we've talked a lot about the power of connecting, especially on social media. And very recently, I had the opportunity to connect with our guest today. Now, Robyn Pollack, where she comes from, is a little bit different of a background than we've had on Top Advisor Marketing podcasts before, because she's been a practicing attorney, or she was a practicing attorney for 20 years, and she's the CEO and founder of Trellis Consulting, which specifically works with diversity and inclusion. And for those of you who've ever been to a financial services conference, when you look around, one of the first things you're going to realize, there's very, very little diversity and inclusion. So, Robyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matt. I'm really excited to be here. This is awesome, and I can't wait to get started.
Well, tell us what Trellis is and where it came from, if you don't mind.
So Trellis is a business strategy firm with a focus on diversity and inclusion. So we help all organizations really effectively and efficiently leverage their diversity initiatives for profitability, for sustainability, for competitive advantage. You know, it's interesting. You asked me where it came from. You referenced that I was a lawyer for 20 years. And when I was a very young lawyer, I joined a professional organization called the Turnaround Management Association. And it was and still is the premier professional organization for people in the restructuring industry, which is what I was. I was a restructuring lawyer. And I remember going to one of my first breakfast meetings, and it was held in Philadelphia, where I live, in a building called the Union League, which was very stereotypically male. In fact, I think it's pretty recent, actually, that they've let women and minorities into the Union League. So you can imagine what it was like as a young lawyer walking into this very masculine building. It's got big, big portraits lining the walls of very old, men sort of bearing down on you, the men of the Union League. And when I walked into this very first breakfast meeting, it was like those men had jumped off the walls from those portraits and were actually standing in that room in their dark suits, eating their breakfast at this meeting. So you can imagine there was nobody, you talk about financial services, there was nobody in that room that looked like me. And after a couple of experiences like this, I went to the president of our Philadelphia chapter and I said, do we have any kind of women's networking group? And this was probably about 16 or 17 years ago. And he said, no, we don't. I said, can I start one? And he said, sure. So fast forward all of these years later, all of the chapters of the TMA have a women's group. And I ran the global Women's Leadership and Development Initiative at the international level for several years before I left law. So we had such success with that I thought to myself, hey, I need to take this out of just restructuring and into the larger market. And so that's what we did. And Trellis actually started as a programming platform for women's initiatives, but I quickly found that diversity and inclusion, all diversity and all inclusion, was a much more, not important issue, but a bigger issue that really needed to be addressed, and that we could encompass women in that and still help other diverse stakeholders. So Trellis expanded, has a very, very business-focused approach. We do audits and assessments to really drill down on what issues organizations are having. From that data, we create customized strategic business plans around diversity and inclusion issues so that we're actually solving for the problems specific to that organization. And then we create the action items and the implementation, the steps that need to be taken, to move towards bigger solutions.
Why is this so important? I guess, I've worked with over 600 financial services offices. Why would financial advisors, insurance professionals, wealth managers, tactical financial advisors, asset managers, and even some of the larger companies, why would they want to do this?
I mean, this is the future, Matt. I mean, this is about attraction and retention. This is about the innovation and better problem solving and better decision making that all of the data bears out that comes from having diverse people in the room. So, when you've got everybody that sort of comes from the same and has the same perspectives and experiences and backgrounds, you get what's called groupthink. I'm sure you've heard of it. The biggest example of that is the Cuban Missile Crisis,
Sure.
With President Kennedy. Mm-hmm. People sort of yesed him, and that was the result. So if you want innovation, if you want all of these positive benefits to leadership and to what's going on at your organization, you need diversity of thought, diversity of experience in the room. And that comes from having people that are diverse, that come with those experiences to build a better company. It also goes to culture. The business world is really, really rapidly changing. Baby boomers are retiring eventually. They are leaving the workforce. And who's replacing them? Millennials and Gen Z. And what those people are looking for in a corporate culture is very, very different than what exists. They almost come in with an assumption that diversity and inclusion have been addressed, that they all have equal access paths to success, that they'll be able to become leaders if they want to in that organization. And you know what? It's simply not true. And so they come in and they're sort of ill-equipped to deal with these things. And they end up, leaving and trying to find another organization that is more forward-focused. So there's the attraction and retention piece. There's also that sort of outward PR piece. Clients are looking for service providers that are diverse. It's become a hot button issue for clients. So all of that goes to sort of building your outward face and what you look like to the world for talent, for clients, and quite frankly, for your reputation and standing in the community. People are very much looking to diversity and inclusion. It's become a very important issue. And if you're not able, not just to talk the talk, but also to walk the walk, you're not going to be sustainable. It's really that simple.
And that could very well be why financial services in general has made such few strides towards really major change, because it's been the same thinking in the same people in power. Now, something you just said in this like hit me like a ton of bricks was no one looked like me.
Right.
Now, we are a marketing company, right? So Top Advisor offers full-blown branding, marketing, podcasting, social media services, and we have an educational model too. And one of the things that we are very strong in, I shouldn't say that, we really believe in, is making sure that we're representing the organization from a branding and communication standpoint in the right way. And we've had a lot of people who have hired us who are pretty much entirely a male staff, but they work with divorced women. Help me understand, when you walked into that male-dominated, eerie guys on the wall staring at you. I've walked into a bunch of those places.
Story?
Yeah, that was fantastic. You described that so well. I can tell you about 15 buildings I've walked into that were just like that. But let's talk about that. As a very successful, strong entrepreneurial woman, what would you work with them? I mean, if there's no one that looks like you, how would you handle that from a marketing perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big issue. And I think, when it comes to financial services and wealth management, there is a tipping point. And if it's nothing, more than optics, that should be enough to move people, in the right direction. I think it's very disconcerting when you are walking into an environment or you're in a company or at a meeting where you don't see anybody that you can relate to. So, I walked into that meeting, there were no younger women. There maybe were a smattering of women in the room, but you're sort of thinking, wait, am I in the right place? So I think when it comes to serving women clients, I mean, I think I read a statistic the other day that women are controlling like 51% of the wealth now.
Yep.
It's interesting because I don't think women, and not just women, I think men too, want to have an experience with an advisor that is, more of a relationship building, more of a counseling, a different approach. And I think that is starting to shift what's going on in the marketplace. And if you don't have that outward facing piece. And this is not about just putting a woman in there so you can, parade this woman to your divorced clients. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about making a real commitment to looking like the constituency that you serve.
Gotcha.
Because I think for those clients, it's off-putting. Clearly, you've got a lot of divorce situations. You have a lot of widows, people who maybe weren't as versed in wealth management. Their husband sort of took over and they don't really know maybe what's going on. That's a whole other, a whole another podcast, I think. But those women want to feel comfortable that they're building a relationship with somebody. It's interesting. I think this really illustrates the point. I met a woman the other day who specializes in wealth management for women. And she said that a lot of her clients have told her the story where they're in a meeting with their advisor. It's, the husband and the wife, and the advisor only talks to the husband, doesn't speak to the wife, doesn't engage the wife. And so he's having this almost one-on-one conversation in front of the wife. And when the wife, when the husband passes away and the wife is the one managing the money, she's got no relationship with this person and she leaves and she finds somebody else who she feels comfortable with. I mean, that's a huge lost opportunity. So if you're talking about marketing and positioning and how it looks, if nothing else, other than optics, which it's way more than that. But if you're really at that surface level, it's an issue.
70% of women leave their husband's financial advisor after their husband passes away. And so that's a statistic that is just killing a lot of financial advisors. Now, you also just said that women control 51% of the wealth. This is not a niche anymore. You can't just niche market to women. They are the majority of the population. That's not a niche, right? Okay, let's talk about what you're doing in financial services. When we were kind of getting to know each other a little bit better before we started recording, we have some friends in common. Let's talk about how you're dipping your toe into our industry from a Trellis perspective.
Yeah, so really what we see, that is needed is really a very comprehensive, integrated, strategic approach. So it's really about the employee life cycle process. It's all the way from how are financial services companies, interviewing and recruiting and onboarding diverse talent, particularly, women, as we're talking about here. How are they onboarding them, integrating them? What is the mentor and sponsor program? How are they feeling supported? What training are they getting? What is the organization doing as they move up the pipeline to retain them? Interestingly, when women, that are wealth managers, their goal, right, is to have their book of business, to have their own clients. One of the issues we find is what happens when that woman goes out on maternity leave, for example, or there's some other issue that causes her to have to leave. And quite frankly, I think that this is applicable outside of just the gender sphere. People leave and have other obligations, family emergencies, and things that they need to deal with that take them out of the corporate world for periods of time. How are those people supported? How are their clients dealt with when they're gone? And I think that's an issue that's a little endemic to this industry. I know in the law, when I had my kids and went out on maternity leave, somebody else took over my work. This is a little different because so much of it is based on personal relationships. So how are we supporting people during those times? How are we supporting women when they're out? How are we getting women onboarded back into the industry? So all of these things go through, the employee life cycle. How are people evaluated? How are people compensated? How are people promoted? How are we getting people into leadership positions? So that's really what we're working on.
Cool.
Putting together strategy and integrated programs to take somebody through the employee lifecycle process and give that company the ability to support them all the way through, whether it is, mentor sponsors we talked about, whether it is creating, teams of people that take over for each other temporarily when you're out, whether it's training, for women or, how to build confidence and resilience and leadership skills and develop business and sales, all the way to organizational training on, why this is so important, why diversity and inclusion is essential, unconscious bias, the kinds of things that hold diverse people back. So that's what we're working on in this industry, a very turnkey strategic approach that we can hand over to a company and say, look, this is your solution. Let us help you implement this.
Do you come in and do like a day program? Is it a couple of days? Is it how? Can you just kind of show us under the hood a little bit more?
Sure, absolutely. So really the ideal process is for us to come in and do an audit and assessment of the organization. What is going on? What are people's perspectives on diversity and inclusion, bias? What are their experiences? Do they feel they're held back? What's the culture? We really do a very deep dive to identify what are the specific issues that are going on here. Because oftentimes we'll get called in and someone will say, we're having a hard time, retaining people of color, or we're having a hard time attracting women. And so we want to understand why. Why are you having this issue? Why are you seeing what you're seeing? Because it could be a multitude of reasons. And if we're solving for the wrong reason, we're wasting everybody's time and resources. And that is not what we're in the business to do. We're really in the business to help. Okay. So we do the deep dive. We have a lot of data that we collect, and then we take that data and we create, as I said, strategic short and long-term business plans that will solve those issues that are uncovered by the audit. And then we come up with a series of action items to implement to solve, to create the solutions for those specific problems. Gotcha. So for instance, if your financial services firm is having a hard time attracting, people of color, we'll, potentially take a look at where are you recruiting from? How are you recruiting? What do your job descriptions look like? What is your interview process? Are your interviewers diverse? So we go through a series of solutions that are beyond just training. Training is one piece of it. So certainly that's like sort of the whole enchilada, and people sort of come in at different parts of the process. So some clients may have already done the audit or assessment, and then they'll say, here's the data, tell us what to do. And then we'll create the plan and we'll go to the implementation. Some say, hey, we're not really there yet, but we'd love for you to come in and do an unconscious bias program for us. So we do speaking engagements, and we do sort of, lunch and learns or half-day programs or retreats, those kinds of things. So it really runs the gamut. My goal is on the assessment strategy piece, because that's really where you see change.
Gotcha. If you are a larger financial services firm, a smaller financial services firm, or if you are a company who services financial services, I really do think that you need to give Trellis a call. I don't know how many, third-party money managers, mutual fund companies are really making this step, but this is a vital step to bring your company into the 21st century. I mean, it pains me to say that you would be bringing yourself into the 21st century because it's not 1950 anymore. The things have fundamentally changed, and our industry really has to change with it. And I believe that working with somebody like Robyn and Trellis Consulting, those changes can start happening within financial services, which is something that we at Top Advisor hold very, very dear. It's one of our core values, making sure that we're trying to be as inclusive and diverse as possible. And because of that, just since January of this year, Robyn, we have implemented things that we never would have implemented before because we have different perspectives. In fact, we have a company that spans 2 continents. We have lots of people in Canada, lots of people in the States, and then we've got a couple of people in the Philippines, and they bring us ideas that are so radically different because they're in a different culture. They think differently. They were raised differently. And it's just so refreshing to have something new to bring to our industry. And I think you are that change maker. Now, if you don't mind, I would like to get to know you personally a little bit better. And so I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions here that will allow our audience to. So now we saw under the hood of what happens at Trellis, but let's kind of open up Robyn's brain a little bit and kind of move around in there and see what we find. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
You got me a little nervous.
That's okay. Well, good. Yeah. Anytime lobotomies are involved, I fully understand.
Yeah.
So when you're not working, what do you do for fun?
I am a huge gym rat.
Oh, okay.
I started working out, oh my God, a gazillion years ago when I was in law school, really as like a stress reducer.
Mm-hmm.
And I have slowly, as I've gotten older, ratcheted it up to the kinds of stuff I'm doing. It's crazy. I should have been going the other way now that I'm older, but no. So, kickboxing and weightlifting and, HIIT classes and all kinds of stuff. So I really enjoy working out. I also have 2 boys. Mm-hmm. They're actually men now, I guess I should say. I have a 19-year-old that's a sophomore in college and a 16-year-old who will be a junior in high school. So they are awesome. And they keep me busy. So definitely, they are my life and not just my spare time. They're awesome. And watching them grow and sending them out into the world, has really been a great experience. So
when you think of somebody that you really look up to, who has been a hero for you in your life?
I've got to tell you, this is going to sound, I don't know, maybe crazy or not, but I just saw the Ruth Bader Ginsburg movie.
Oh my God. Yeah.
I have got to tell you, I was never prouder to be a woman, in the law in my life. I mean, what things that she had done, I didn't even know.
Yeah.
So I would say she is my current hero.
Yay.
She is just a rock star. And, she's a gym rat too. So I feel that connection.
I love watching the RBG videos where she's like a gangster kind of, walking around and all of these people are so reverent of her. She is, I think she's really truly going to go down in history as just one of the greatest human beings that's ever done anything in the United States. Oh, that makes me so happy. I just made a huge smile on my face. All right. Who's your favorite person in history and why?
Oh my God, you're stumping me. My favorite person in history. Mm-hmm. Oof. I don't know. I have to think about this one.
Okay.
Let's skip over this while I mull that one over.
So let's talk about success. When you think of success, how do you measure it for yourself?
For me, it's really about having a positive impact. Mm-hmm. Success for me is positively impacting, the people in my life, with personally, and with my work. Mm-hmm. I think that success is sort of about your legacy. We're all here for a short period of time. We all know that, right? What do they say? Death and taxes, 2 things you can't avoid. I mean, you've got what you've got here. It's how did you leave the world? What were the changes that you made? How did you positively impact the world around you and the people that you interacted with? So to me, that's really what success is. I want to leave something behind. I want to have made an impact. I want to, and of course, with my kids, my family, but also, in the business world, if I can be that catalyst for change and make things better, for the next generations, to me, that's really the definition of success.
Do you have a go-to thing that you recommend to clients, families, or friends?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about this a little bit when we were prepping in the beginning. Mm-hmm. I would say that I would recommend Carol Dweck's book called Mindset. It's not a new book, but mindset is growth mindset. For those who don't know what it is a concept that she created that talks about that your skills, your ability, your intelligence is not fixed. So if you believe that you're not good at math and you're never going to get better at math, you never will. But if you have a growth mindset and you feel, you understand that you can become smarter, better, faster, stronger, you will. So I think that's a powerful concept. And that concept in conjunction with the concept of grit, which is Angela Duckworth's concept, really are great predictors of success. So how do you view your own capabilities and how do you utilize those to move through the world and, utilize that concept of grit, which to me is like perseverance on steroids. How do you move through obstacles and failures and setbacks and use them to learn a lesson and come out the other side. So I would definitely recommend Mindset. It's funny, my 16-year-old had to read it or chose to read it for one of his summer reading books last year going into 10th grade. So pretty powerful stuff, for a teenager to be exposed to. So I recommend that everybody should read it.
It's apparent that you're a very driven person. How do you keep yourself on track? How do you keep yourself focused? Do you have a mantra or a motto or something that you say to really keep that fire burning?
It's interesting. I did a session for a women's group last week on risk and resilience. And the way I teach, I'm also an adjunct at Temple Law School. I teach a practicum. So I've been teaching there for 16 years, very, very experiential, very hands-on class. Mm-hmm. And so I've transferred my teaching style into how we do trainings and educational sessions for Trellis. So this was a very interactive workshop session that we did for about 75 women. So we were talking about resilience, and I asked all of them to create what's called a 6-word memoir. Mm-hmm. I wanted them to describe in 6 words their perspective on resilience. So if they were to put it up on a plaque, on their wall, to sort of psych themselves up, get ready for the day, be able to utilize that phrase when things were bad, what did that look like for them? So everybody wrote their own. And I wrote mine, and it was now I can't remember. I think it was stand up and be ready. Oh. So that's really what, that you've got to be ready for what's coming. You've got to be prepared for success. Got to be, open to possibilities and learning and just be ready. So that's what I would say. Was that 6 words? Stand up and be ready. No, It wasn't.
That's close enough.
Close enough.
Now, so if you have the audience of a pretty substantial amount of financial services professionals, if you were to offer something to them directly, since you have their attention, what would you like to offer them, and what is the best way for them to take advantage of that offer?
I mean, certainly, offer to people, to reach out. I will give, everyone my direct email and to reach out and to have a conversation about ways that, we can help you. That's really what the goal is here is, as I said, to leave the world a better place. We're looking to make change, and we are looking to help people, be able to navigate the workplace, to have workplaces be able to understand, the importance of all of this moving forward. We say we're about people and profitability. So those are really the 2 areas, and they drive each other. People are an organization's greatest asset. So I would, welcome conversations with people, always happy to give advice and to really see how we can help move this issue forward.
So what is your contact information?
So people can reach me at Pollack, P as in Paul, OLLACK, at trellisconsultingllc.com. And that goes directly to me. I don't have somebody, sort of culling through my emails. I get and read every one. So happy to be a resource for anybody out there that needs help and wants to discuss, ways that we can support them in this work.
And we will make sure that we put that in our show notes on top of the link to the books that Robyn was talking about to make sure that you can get those. And of course, a link to her website and so that you can check out Trellis. Robyn, thank you so much for being a guest on our podcast today.
Thanks, Matt. It was a ton of fun. I really enjoyed it.
And if you know somebody after listening to this podcast that really needs to look at diversity and inclusion in a different way, or of an organization that could use a hand in implementing a diversity or an inclusion program, please make sure that you reach out to Trellis Consulting and get Robyn and her team to come out to that organization in order to help. If you have not subscribed to the podcast, make sure you click that subscribe now button below. That way, when we come out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. For everybody at Trellis Consulting, Robyn Pollack, and all of us at Top Advisor Marketing, this is Matt Halloran, and we'll see you on the other side of the mic very soon.
Are you ready to change the way you communicate with your clients? Are you tired of being the best kept secret in your area? Learn how to become a prolific online influencer, attract more ideal clients, and grow your business. Contact us today and see what the power of podcasting can do for your business. Click on the Contact Us link on our website at topadvisormarketing.com and set up a call to learn more. Follow us on LinkedIn and Facebook for more updates and information.